Hello, my friends. Welcome to a commentary channel. I did say that I was starting to pull back. There's going to be a lot less frequency of my videos because why should I just waste my time to only get 1 or 2 views? It's not, no, don't get me wrong. I never wanted to, be big or famous or anything like that. But I do put time and effort, and time is valuable in making videos. And I've made thousands now, and it was okay at the start when it was just a release for me because my husband was dying. But after my beloved husband died, I started to take YouTube more seriously, and I did a lot of different topics, but still I couldn't get views. In fact, the only video that's got a real lot of views is about sexual trauma that I've experienced at the hands of my father. That was the only one. I have looked at everything from paranormal, missing people, my own life, drugs, and other things, the Matrix, all sorts of things. If you want to search my channel, you might find something that interests you. Anyway, I'm back today to share a true story. I am very lucky. I have some disabilities. I might seem normal to you, but what is normal? I have mental health issues, and I have some physical issues like COPD, chronic pain, neuropathy, etc., etc. And with my mental health, I'm willing to share. I have possible ADHD, PTSD, borderline personality disorder, anxiety, and I can panic very easily. I tend to mask a lot of what I'm feeling. Anyway, that's why I'm telling you this, is because I was very lucky to get on NDIS. NDIS stands for National Disability Insurance Scheme. And I've only got a very small package, but under my package, I'm allowed a cleaner 5 hours a week. My cleaner comes from Nepal. Today, she told me a very sad story. She told me that she was very young. She was living in Nepal at the time. It was the year 2001, and it was a Friday night, and she and her auntie were walking the streets, and down the gutter was running red, and they thought it was paint. Later, they learnt it was blood of the royals. The royal family was wiped out. Now, when the royal family was wiped out, the people went into revolt when the king's younger brother ascended, for want of a better word, the throne, because the people blamed him. Now, according to him, the story went like this. The king's son wanted to marry a princess of Indian royalty, but the mother, so the queen, didn't like this because they weren't as in the same, for want of a better word, as higher up, hierarchy. There's castes and things, and she wasn't as high up. And so the story, the blame for a little while was that an argument occurred this Friday night, and the son got very drunk, and it was all over the refusal, the mother not allowing him to marry this Indian princess that he had met about 1988, and he had fallen in love with. And the story goes that he was drunk, went to his room, and he owned firearms. Now, all the royals owned firearms, and this isn't the story coming from my cleaner who lived in Nepal at the time. So this is from the actual source, Nepal. So the story went along that the son, because the parents rejected the notion of him wanting to marry his love, went around and shot all of the family. They were all wiped out, and then shot himself. However, there is two big, well, more than that, there's things that show that this is impossible. This son who shot himself later died after being in a coma, and he shot himself supposedly twice. Why would he need to shoot himself twice? He was also right-handed, and it was the left temple where he was shot. How could that be? How could he have committed suicide? The other thing is no autopsy was done to see if the prince did have alcohol and hash in his blood. And it was very convenient that the king's younger brother was out of... What happened was, this particular Friday, the royal family had got together to celebrate and were having like a party. And conveniently, the second brother, I think his name begins with G. You can look this up on YouTube. Look it up. It's called Nepal Royal Family Massacre 2001. Anyway, the king's younger brother was conveniently, and his family was conveniently out of the area at the time. Questions arise. Why didn't the guards do something? According to my cleaner, her name's Anjala, she said that a couple of the guards who survived know what happened, but one had a stroke from PTSD or something, and it was all hushed up. And also the reaction. Let me just sidetrack here. When a man in a family dies, all the male relations shave their heads. When the king was killed, all the males in Nepal shaved their heads to honor the king. This king was loved. When the so-called younger son was accused, who actually died, and I told you there was no autopsy done to prove that he was drunk. It was like it was done quickly, so that all the blame could be laid on him, because if an autopsy had been done, they would have found out that He had alcohol and other substances in his system, and it was impossible in a drunken state to kill the rest of his family. And the younger brother, for a time, then became king. But the people revolted, and for a few weeks there was no internet, there was no TV, there was martial law. Now, where were the guards? My cleaner told me that there are 3 levels of guards. That level 3 is the outside of the perimeter. Level 2 is inside the perimeter, and level 1 surrounds the royal family. This tragedy should have and could have been prevented by the guards, which indicates, my cleaner said, that the population of Nepal believe that the guards were bought off. Now, the king who died was really loved by his people, but going back about 10 years earlier, there was a movement, a Maoist, M-A-O-I-S-T movement, and he kind of was, well, he wasn't against it, and his younger brother didn't agree with him. It sounded like his younger brother wanted to be a dictator. So anyway, after this tragedy, the younger brother ascended the throne, but the people were not happy and would not accept him. That's why they had these protests that went on a strike, my cleaner said. The people had a strike. So the palace now is a museum, and she said since the royal family was killed and they wouldn't accept the younger brother because people believed he is responsible, but he actually gave this narrative that it was the younger son that did it because it suited his purposes. Now, after 24 years, the people of Nepal are divided because after the royal family was killed off and there's no more heirs to inherit because they won't accept the younger brother. So there's no more royal family to inherit the throne. So they went to politics. They have a prime minister. But apparently their country is now worse off than it was under a kingship, under royalty. So now 50% of the people of Nepal want this younger brother to come back as king. They're saying, let bygones be bygones, and 50% of the population don't want him to be king. And for the royalty to be re-established, 100% of the population has to agree. Now, as you guys know, I'm also into paranormal. So I said to her, because my cleaner is a Hindu and she's also a believer in spirits, I've had to help her here a couple of times because of spirit attachments. And she said that the guards that went back afterwards, could hear cries of ghosts and they had to have a cleansing. Now, if I was one of the royal family, I would come back as one of the spirits wanting vengeance for my death. But no one accepts that the younger son did do it. It is true that the parents did disapprove of his wanting to marry this Indian princess. She's gone on to marry somebody else. I think Singh, she went on also to England and she got educated. The other thing my Hindu Nepalese cleaner told me is she said that England, when Queen Elizabeth was alive, they had a very good relationship with Nepal. And a lot of the stuff that the King of Nepal had was gifts from England. The other thing that when this murder on a grand scale occurred, the people suspect India involvement. My cleaner told me that Nepal has a very bad relationship with India, and in Nepal there's a massive river. And her exact words were, should India do wrong by Nepal, Nepal has on this river like a big door, like a big gate. Now remember, this is a different culture to Western, so she's trying to put it in Western terms for me. And she said that if India does wrong, they open the gate and this river rushes and it's like a tsunami and it will wipe India out. So I asked her, I said, well, we in the West have heard stories that China wants Nepal and has been terrible to Nepal. Apparently that is BS. China treats Nepal very well. I trust my cleaner. She's my cleaner. And the other thing, there is a legend. When the first king of this dynasty united all the Nepal together, he met a sage and he presented curd to the sage, and the sage blessed it and drank from it and gave it back to the king. But the king spilled it because he refused to drink the curd that someone else had drunk. So the sage said to the king, because of that, only 10 generations will rule. So Nepal has only had 10 kings. 10 kings before that. On the 11th was killed, wiped out. The dynasty wiped out. The other interest, which is strange, is that the king and queen come from different clans, and these clans are warring clans, so it's very dirty politics. So I have the story directly from my cleaner, who was a little girl when this happened, and it was a special event. She actually named it Good Friday. They were celebrating Good Friday. I didn't ask her anymore because our Good Friday is related to Easter, and Nepal is a Hindu country, so I don't know what she meant by Good Friday. Maybe that was their Hindu custom, I'm not sure. So I'm telling you the story, and how after this tragedy, when after it had all happened, the king's second brother oversaw the report of what happened, and of course it was convenient to blame the younger son. because he knew that the younger son and the parents were already at loggerheads over the choice of his bride. So very convenient. When the younger brother, who is now alive, or is still alive, really coveted the throne and believed that the king was too, for want of better words, too easy going. He was very loved by the people. When he died and the queen died, everybody cried, and as I told you, every male shaved their heads because out of respect. This royalty is like gods. In Hinduism, royalty, kings and queens are gods and goddesses. So that's an up-to-date true event of what happened 2001. So if you want to learn all the names and everybody that was wiped out, I advise you to search, as I said, Nepal Royal Family Massacre 2001. Lastly, when my cleaner, Anjala, I call her for short, and her auntie were walking the streets and saw running down the gutter the red, which they later learnt was blood, she said by that time when they saw it, because they only lived 20 minutes from the palace, people would have been cleaning and washing, so this blood was diluted. And the fact that no guards interfered and allowed this royal family to be decimated shows someone paid them off. So the belief is it was the king's younger brother who did it. That's what the Nepalese people feel. But now 24 years have passed. The country is in a worse state than what it was under royalty. And so half of the people want this younger brother to come back to be king. Because for a while after the family had died, he was king for a few days, but the people didn't like it because of what had happened. They would not accept him as king, so he handed the throne back and no one became king. The palace, no one's allowed to live in the palace. It's now a museum. So I said to my cleaner, I had never heard of this story. Leave it in the comments if you have heard of this. And that legend I told you about the sage and the king, my cleaner said that in Nepal, in their history books, they learn this. So let me know in the comments if you have heard about this tragedy, and if you haven't, do some research and then leave it in the comments and tell me, who do you think is behind this tragedy? I listened very closely to what my cleaner had to say, and I put things together, namely that the younger son was intoxicated, he smoked hashish and something else. He was that drunk, he actually was reported as being vomiting into the toilet. How can someone that drunk have gone all around killing people? The other thing is there has to be more than one killer. I believe they were all killed at the same time. My cleaner also said that when they went, people were allowed at morning to view the king and queen as they lay in their coffins. And the queen's face had been so messed up by the shootings She was the only one who ran, but she got shot down. There were so many bullets in her, but her face was such a mess that it had to have plastic. 24 hours it took to make this plastic mask. And if you look at the royal family, they were very beautiful. I said to my cleaner that I hadn't heard about it, and she said that it was in the news everywhere. Now, back in 2001, I was 40, so I should have heard it. Let me know if you did hear about it. Thank you for watching. Love, light, and blessings. So this is an update on the Royal Massacre. And sorry, I don't know all their names. I just know that the king who died, his name began with a B, and the younger brother, his name is a G. And because they're not English names, they're very hard to remember. And I've just heard this story just today, and I ended up watching a YouTube myself, and my cleaner watched the YouTube video myself with me and saying, no, that's not right. No, that's not right. That was the official story that the son did it. It was approved of by the king's younger brother. And the king's younger brother, because he allegedly killed this loved royal family, is why he was not accepted on the throne and why they had strikes. Be kind to one another. Thank you if you have stayed with me this far, and I will be back on YouTube, just not as often. Bye, and be nice to one another and love yourselves. Bye.